Looking at the leading momentum companies on the ASX, as well as the launchpad companies, this is the breeding ground, quite often where the top performers, the momentum leaders, come from in that launchpad. So we want to go through both lists and find out, one, where the best companies are there still good opportunities there from a trading perspective? And then also understand these ones, the breeding ground, well, can they become the next leaders of the market? And if so, what are we looking for from a trading perspective, volume price analysis, and also pulling lessons from these companies? We do this through the 30/30 list that's shared with Gary on a Thursday afternoon, and our members get that list at the very same time because they also put up a request of some charts to look at, and we've got a great list of those today from members. Thank you very much for that support and interest. So Gary Glover has that list. He's been through it. He's pulled out his favourites, and we'll throw the other ones to him if he hasn't covered them already. At that point, we say good morning, Gary. Happy Friday. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good, Chris.
So you're those lists to go through, and I was drilling you before on some questions beforehand about where we sit with the market, some great insights. We'll save that till the end because I know a lot of people really want to hear about the charts and the momentum leaders. With these top 30 momentum companies, what's standing out to you this week on those quarterly momentum leaders?
Just probably some big moves there, Chris, really. So, just a few B-wave breaks in there, a few VCPs. A few stocks been leading for a while. There's a few yesterday heroes in there. So, I think, Weebit, Nano. There's a couple that sort of, so some old leaders that have sort of re-emerged in there. So, I don't know whether that's indicative of the market, maybe being at the later stages or not, possibly. But it's decent moves. I mean, look, this not one here, that's Merino, which is only just listed there, Chris. And again, another IPO at 20 cents. What's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. It's at $1.50. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days later, we're back down here in the 50s, 53 cents here. So pretty big move there. But yeah, quite volatile. So seeing some big moves there. This is definitely one to keep an eye on there, just because it's it's in the first 5 days of the IPO, it's gone up. What was that? 500 or 600%. So that's a fair move pretty quickly. So yeah, it definitely goes on the radar. We should be keeping an eye on that. It'd like to see it a little bit tighter. Pretty loose here so far. But anything can move that fast. We want to be keeping an eye on it.
It joins your 100 club. It joins your list of IPOs that you like to look at. We know from watching this and listening to you for many years now, you've identified a fair few great patterns to look for with the IPOs. So that's why it sits on your list, right? So you can sort of follow it to see which one it unfolds, A, B, or C, which pattern, and then decide of how to trade it.
Well, it's been some great IPOs. So we've showed a few of them there recently. I think PEA was sort of one that's obviously still coming along there. I think that's sort of still, I'm sure it's on the list there, might have just fallen out there, but it's been pretty much on the list for a long time here. But yeah, it's still hanging in there. It's still managed to hold the 10-day moving average there. So pretty incredible, really. So pretty decent there. I know that there was another stock there. I probably kind of digress a little bit here, but RDX was another IPO, Chris, which we're just mentioning there, which is in that sort of vitamin supplement sort of space there. Interesting new business there. It hasn't been around that long. I think it might just be over 12 months there. What's that? June 23 there. So a bit of a flat start, and then B-wave break here, and then it just has a look back here. So that's always sort of got to keep an eye on those IPOs because they sort of can be volatile a bit loose early there, but some pretty good opportunities to fall through there. So yeah, definitely for that purposes there, we always want to keep an eye on the IPOs. Number 6 there, MHK. I think we talked about this last week. It's look a bit thin here, a bit loose in there, but did see a bit of a VCP in here, Chris, and then it's obviously gone on with it here. It's a bit small for me, but yeah, again, showed relative strength, sort of kicked on there. YRL was sort of one that we mentioned there. It had a pretty good move here, pretty impulsive. Starting to sort of pull back there. I thought it was sort of looking okay here a couple of days ago. Has sort of broken a little bit back here now, so it's probably getting a little bit deep here now. You probably would have liked to have seen it maybe be a little squarer here and hold up a little bit better than it has. So probably looking less attractive there, but obviously it has shown some strength early. Webbit Nano is one that actually has popped out of the range there. So again, I mean, if you look at this stock here, and I do mention this sort of B wave there regularly, Chris, but you can see here it's sort of trending down the whole time here. Really doesn't break a swing high until, start to see a little bit of volume here, and maybe like a little bit of a B wave break here. You might have been looking around this period here, but yeah, so to me, it's not one, I've just seen a few of those older leaders pop in there. It's still a lot of headway there. I think if you look at the weekly chart, still coming after a fairly decent, $9 down to like, what's that, 180 there. So that's a fairly large decline there. So, it's got to have a few losers in front of it, but look, it's had a fair move here. So I think Appen's had a similar sort of move there against a lot of the headway. So this is definitely one to sort of keep an eye on there. But we're now looking for sort of something, consolidation, some tight price action. But at least now we've seen some decent volume in it and trade pretty well. So just one to sort of watch there. Appen has traded pretty well there. I was hoping it might have had a some sort of AVC in here, but it's just kicked on and gone here. The whole thing's tightened up here again here. So looking constructive, they probably you'd prefer like to see some lighter volume there. The volume sort of stayed steady all the way through there, up and down. So but still, this is a pretty bullish trend here so far. So so we've seen here with the momentum stocks that I'm expecting those sort of 10 or 20 day moving averages there. That's that's the way to play them there. So sell something to heat as the pros do, and then use the moving averages to sort of try and stay with the trend there, and hopefully these things keep going further like they often do. APX definitely one of those. MWI, Midway, bit of a hard one there. Look, has been a bit of a leader, big move, AVC pullback and then gap up, so you can't really account for something like that. AXC is another sort of former leader, Chris. It was pretty hot there last year. Building something coming out of base, a little bit of volume there. Feel like the volume might be coming in a bit late rather than early there. So just got to be a little cautious there, and also being an old leader, but goes back on the radar. Mesa Blast I thought was pretty interesting. I did actually trade this one myself there. I just thought the stock was showing relative strength. I like the fact that the whole thing sort of sat on top of the previous high, and there wasn't too much. If you look at that selling in there, see there's that light selling there. So we've got a bit of a leader there, strong volume into the high. And it's pulled back here on a very, very light volume. And then, once we get a little B wave break here, that's personally something I look for. That has moved on there. So it's had a good moves. Definitely sell some into strength, as they say. Hold the rest, with a moving average sort of stop there. That's how the professionals tend to play these things here. So, you lock some gains in of that sort of 3 to 5 day sort of fast move and backstop the rest. And hopefully, you're on a couple that have these moves that don't look back. AL3 is pretty interesting there. It's been pretty strong. Being a leader, had that big move there, Chris, but probably too small for me. But we saw big volume there, pull back in that sort of classic sort of 3 wave, and then sort of started to build. It's been sort of slow going here, but the thing about here is the volume's been pretty constant all the way through. And we're now going to retest the high. So now we're looking for maybe some sort of little cut there would be ideal. If this is sort of going to re-emerge, probably needs to go through a bit of a consolidation here, but probably don't want to see it, I prefer to sort of see it in the upper half of this sort of, of this cup and hold in this range here for a while. But yeah, definitely want to keep an eye on there just to the...
But if you're long that, would you be looking at the 10 or the 20 or sitting on the recent high? Where would you be placing us? You probably sold something to heat in day 3.
Yeah.
But the rest of it, are you running a stop around the 20, the 10-day moving average, 20 cents sitting on the old high?
Yeah, you look the hard one here. The sort of 10 and 20. Obviously, it's only a lighter name here, so you're going to get percentage moves there. So they do make it. That's why I don't trade the 30-cent stocks, because the percentages are pretty tricky there. So you'd be locking sort of some in here. Yeah, you have to sort of backstop. I mean, look, I prefer, I'd be probably using the last swing low rather than moving average with those things there. You just want to see each sort of high and low get sort of hold there. So it's a long way back here. You know, going back at sort of 17 cents here, and you're up to 25. Yeah, it's a long way back to the
percentage wise. Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, then that might make a cup here around that 17, 18 cents, knock you out maybe, then go back up again. So it's, yeah. So, you know, something like this, these smaller ones there, I mean, I don't trade them, but if I was going to trade them, they'll probably be, you know, maybe a little bit more active on some of it into that, you know, bigger moves. If I saw a big move like that, you'd probably take some off there. You might carry it a little bit there, and you're hoping that maybe they peel back and you can add some back on. So, but I'm a little more active. So if someone is, you know, other traders are a bit less passive, they might just, let me just open a door here. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, that was happening. But yeah, I guess you got to trade your own sort of style and pattern there. Some people love the small ones because you can get some big moves. But yeah, it's hard to be, you know, it's hard to be sort of tight on stops there with those things. There's sort of, like one thing is you can see like liquidity can disappear and getting volume away. And yeah, and they can get some big moves as well. So, RSH, just sort of one that we featured previously there. Just saw a little bit of heavy selling, two down days there. So has sort of broken that 10, but did flutter with it a little bit more. Probably the 20s, probably a better moving average is. Again, that's a pretty small name, so yeah, not much more difficult with these smaller stocks here. But you know, I think you just got to try and just use sort of something consistent with those as well. SIG I thought was pretty interesting, Chris. Like this to me just feels like a classic sort of buy the rumor, sell the fact. Like it's amazing how big a run this has had here. And obviously we showed relative strength throughout this period here. You know, August, September, they was just hanging in pretty tight here, and then waiting for ACCC approval, and it's coming. It's been held up. It's coming. It's got held up. It's coming. Bang! Finally get approval. You know, so it's, you know, again, this rally was all about getting approval. It's coming. You know, so it's like, to me, it's like, wow, the market little is split 120. It's basically doubled in value just on the prospect of it coming. You know, so yeah, I mean the valuation is pretty high, but just the nature of that trade has moved in, you know, how it's moved into that event. It's just sometimes just in the old days, I remember sort of like, you know, Combank was going to, you know, they're talking about Combank having a pretty good, you know, report, and everyone thinks, oh, they're going to report well. So the stock runs up, and then sure enough, they report well, and then all the sellers come in and they sell that. So buy the rumor, sell it back. So that's the thing you got to be wary of here. So people go, oh, it's a great result, but they started to come up.
Already priced it in.
Yeah. So how a stock will trade into an event is pretty important as well. Just as, you know, I know, so we're looking at the episodic pivots, the game changer trades for me is when you get an earnings or a game changing announcement, the stock gaps and runs can be changing as well. But the stock's moved into that event hard, that you've got to be, you know, got to be wary of that as well. Everyone is sort of waiting for that, you know, they're almost waiting for the liquidity event to get out as well. So if you're a fundy, you're a big position there, you can't move in and out freely. So you actually want to, you know, those days when you actually get news and flow and volume, those are the days you got to transact. POL, yeah, that had that little cup and handle there previously. It's gone on, you know, had a pretty nice move there. Had that little pullback in there, Chris. See a little bit of volume there, but yeah, it's had another move there. The last 3 days down here is 1, 2, 3. See how that volume's sort of growing. That's probably not, you know, that's, you know, if you go back and look at sort of Spartan stuff, when that sort of sold off, it had maybe 1 day of selling, and then the next 2 days sort of dried up. It didn't expand, didn't get bigger and bigger, So this one here, just be careful. This one here now, take a good move, and there's definitely you've seen a few sort of selling days in here as well. So a little bit more selling than you'd like to see. If you study the leaders of the past, IMR, it's one that I quite like actually. Sort of, I did actually sort of trade some of this. I probably traded out a little early into some of that heat. Didn't sort of catch you with the cap raise, and then build some out, and then I bought them back a bit lower, and then trade some out into a bit of heat. But it's pretty gappy. It's that's the problem with the small ones. They can really cap up and down here. So you can look good and bad depending on what day it is with some of the small ones. So, but yeah, this looks okay here. The thing I like about this one previously, Chris, was the weekly setup as well. So you can sort of see here now, it's sort of got a cup and handle there on the weekly as well. So being sort of base here held up pretty well. That's come through here, sort of, technically that's a good sort of setup there. So that's what, we go back and look at the model book, a lot of them some of those names that come out of some decent declines start building, then they do make the cup and handle the 52-week high. That's often how they sort of go on here. So a bunch of this one's a little loose here. I'm going to watch this one here. Just prefer to see some sort of consolidation here first, but just thought the weekly setup looks pretty decent there to me. So I'd still have that on my radar there. I think IMR still looks pretty good. PPH, sort of one there, sort of, to be honest, sort of, probably a little bit biased about what could happen with this one here, but it has sort of gone on and gone a bit higher. Saw a few brokers actually talking about this having a bit of value. That could go up quite a bit. So, but yeah, I didn't expect it to run like this, but it did come out of a nice little tight pattern here, little VCP, and then it's broken up here. So, again through here, when you see these things, sometimes you see these things run hot here. You do want to sort of sell some into heat. I understand that, but when you see 1, 2, 3 days here, no selling there, and that should be saying, oh, maybe I should put some back on there because no one's selling into that heat. That's when you can sort of get a move there. I think I mentioned this last week with SKS. I did sell some of this into this heat here. But look at that volume, 1, 2, 3 days down here. Attracted no selling at all. So this is, Spartan 101. If we go back onto that Spartan chart over the years, it was moving up good volume, pull back. The sellers would just dry up, and then it can go again. So you can see that's gone on again, and even like this little tight congestion there, not too much selling going on here. So there's no selling, not attracting any selling after a bit of a run there on a 10-minute high here. So it's a good lesson there for people who are pretty new to trading momentum shares there. If you do get those sort of really strong move, something impulsive, you get a 3-day or a 5-day rally. If you get a 3-day, consolidation and it attracts very little selling, then, probably should be sort of telling you to make sure you still got a good position size on there. If you have it, then maybe top up a little bit. So, if I was trading that position, let's just say I scaled up into that position, I've got a reasonable position size. It seems to say I've got to, say, 10 or 15 or maybe 20%. Sometimes the faster moving ones are hard to get to 20% if that's your maximum. But say I'd say 15% there, you might trade 5 of that into heat. Or if it has a big pop, maybe you trade half it into heat. But if you saw that 3-day come back on again, you might just say you traded half. In this market, I've been trading half just because I feel like a lot of them are coming back quite a bit. So if I saw it trade into half and that pull back after 3 days, I put at least a quarter of that, put half of that half back on, a quarter back on again. So if I was at 15%, sold 5 or sold half of that, I'd put half that back on again as well. So you may not necessarily put it all back on, but I think it's a good sign to be, if you're not sort of seeing weakness there, and those stronger names are giving you a good setup there. NEU is sort of just one on the list this week, Chris, just because it had a pretty impulsive move off that low, bit of a change in character. So for me, it goes on on the watch list there in terms of what we're looking for. So ideally looking for some sort of little high tight flag, some sort of little pennant sort of sideways consolidation there. Hopefully not too much volume, use up a bit of time, and maybe it'll give us another setup there. I think ABH. This is one that I tried to trade actually previously there. Sort of came down here, that whole thing tightened up in here. I thought this was a VCP in here, Chris. I think it was sort of like starting to come out of here. So I sort of thought, oh, a bit of a, it might have been a little bit of a break in here. I thought this might, but end up breaking lower. Did sort of get going there, but then it just stayed under the high here as well. Sort of went sideways, but it didn't give too much away here. Probably had a few chances to get back into this one, never really did. And then it did eventually pop out there. But again, you sort of got that, got that big basing pattern there, 0, 1, 2, 3 sort of setting up in here. I would have preferred this to sort of come back a little deeper, maybe back to the 50, but it just didn't sort of set up there. But good little basing set up there, really.
Could that be an example? I remember you talked about this with some of the larger cap companies, possibly more on your Tuesday interviews. But as you have mentioned, 0, 1, 2, 3 bottom. So looking at the June, July bottom, and then the August low, and then the September low, and then a much higher October low. Looking at those successively higher lows, I'm going to guess that you would say you'd rather have entered the stock in late October, just under $3.20, than have bought it June, July under $2.40 and held it throughout that couple of months. Would that be right? You'd rather do the October entry than the June, July and actually pick the absolute low?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard there. I think I was just trying to work out where I entered it here. I thought I entered actually somewhere a little B wave there, but I can't sort of see where the B wave break was in here. I think I sort of might have a small position on there, but yeah, I think it sort of didn't sort of set up pretty well. Maybe I tried to cheat the system a little bit, then realised that it wasn't hadn't moved. So I just, oftentimes with these VCPs, if I'm not in the money pretty quickly, I used to sort of just get out. Whereas sort of now I'm waiting for that B wave every time now. Just try not to sort of preempt.
So you're not cheating?
Try not to cheat. No. Like I think it's got to be obvious. Got to be really obvious there.
Like a pocket pivot or something coming.
Yeah. Like I might have. I did sort of. I did trade Orica there yesterday, Chris, because I do like this one. It was basically, again, it was like a stock that showed relative strength there, and it had undercut the low here. So I thought this is a good little signal here, a little sort of undercut. And I did trade this, and I had a bit of a pop, moved my sort of stop up there, and then I got hit on the way back here. So I think I sort of put some back on this day. I think I sort of I literally got sort of knocked out of this pretty tight. But then on this day here, I thought the result was actually pretty good. I read everything I read. I thought that's really outstanding here. But the first half hour or so there, the stock was under pressure there, and it got forced down to a new low. But there was actually no volume at all in the low. I thought, that's felt like a bit of a like a bit of a throwback there. There was no volume in there. It wasn't aggressive selling at all. It's just the buyers they're just letting it sort of taper off. So I realized in the first hour, I thought, yeah, this is not attracting. No one's aggressively selling off. But just the buyers hadn't stepped in here. So I put my position back on. And if anything, actually, what I ended up doing was actually putting I'd only had like a half size on. I ended up putting a full size on here with a much tighter stop. So I was risking about a fifth of my normal stop. And I had a 10-to-1 risk reward if it gets to $19. So I thought, okay, I've got to place that. That's my rules to basically these little undercuts of the strong names. And I have noticed if you study a lot of those leading names, the undercuts, I think News Corp, maybe TLX, doing car sales there, when they do undercut, they sort of tend to pop up a bit, and then they tend to all pop back pretty quickly, come back pretty deep. So almost sort of try to shake you out. Where they shake you out once, then they try to shake you out again, and then they often go. So it's unusual sort of pattern there, but that only came from actually building a library of those patterns, studying those patterns, writing some rules around those patterns, and then so in the end here, I've managed to sort of get, after getting stopped out for a tiny loss there, I've managed to get a maximum position on there with a tiny sort of risk in there. And like now I can backstop the whole lot. So hopefully it keeps going. But yeah, that's the beauty of sort of studying individual patterns and setting your rules and having a process there. And then just building a library of those set of setups as well, like the VCPs, the cup and handles, just build libraries there so you can study them. So when you see them set up again, you got to trade them there. I mean, look, they don't all got a plan. I mean, this is a great one here. I mean, the VUL, that was a stock that was showing relative strength there. It had a VCP in here, Chris. We did break the little B wave down here. So I managed to sort of get a position on this one here. I think I might have added to it on this little VCP here as well. And then, but it looked good here. It kept building, but it kept having some pretty decent shakeouts there. This is the one that basically knocked me out here for a small gain, but then it's gone up. But you can't feel bad because you got knocked out, and then 3 or 4 days later it's at a new high. You've got to have a process. So, because if that rolls over and it goes down to $3, then you're like, oh, I should have. It's all about protecting the capital. So, you're going to have some that knock you out and go back and forth there. But isn't it? We're probably that's the momentum there. That's a quality maker ranking now. I mean, that's I'm almost going to jump ahead here, Chris, because because around those sort of stocks with these leading names, we talk about it all the time. That they're the stocks that run the strongest, and they always run much further than anyone ever anticipates. But when they're done, we get some big corrections. And if you go through the model book at the moment, I think we covered around 15 stocks. I think only 5 of those 15, Chris, haven't started their correction. Yeah. So 10 are already turned out. So we've seen Spartan, which was a leader, that's already rolled off here. We just saw UX, which has been probably one of the strongest stocks on the board. That just rolled off in a day, bang. So that's why we've sort of got to have some sort of these leading names. You got to stay with them. But we've still got to have a stopping process because we know when they're done, you're going to get big declines and stuff there. I mean, we saw it with drone shield when they roll off here. There can be large pullbacks there. Once the game's up, they'll pull back here. So I noticed 360 had a reasonable pullback. There's a bit of selling in the day. First time we've actually probably had a decent reaction for this line. So if I was long this one here, this is probably one I'd be tightening up on here at the moment, just because it's sort of showing a little bit of vulnerability. But yeah, we're seeing so far out of those model books, all those strongest names, I think only 5. I think PME, I think CAT, and a few others there have held on here, but a large majority of them have already started to turn over and had some fairly declines. So that's the nature of trading momentum shares, is that's why we sort of have stops in place.
And I do remember you put out a contentious title, a controversial title to one of the videos a few months ago, which was Drone Shield. And you sort of marked out how much it could get hit and how much it could pull back because it was a momentum leader in that 80-20 rule. So I guess that's just really an example of how much it can get hit. And I can see the spot where you're going to say. So just based on that principle, where could NXL fall to if we relay that onto this chart?
Yeah, so we know 2 things there. So we know the 50-80 rule. So we know 80% of these leading names will have a 50% correction. Okay, so there's our one. So we're going from just under $8 there. So we could come back to around that $4 mark, which would be a 50% correction there. So technically we're still on top of this high there around 370. That would be around 50% drop there. So we know that's possible, these stocks here. Oftentimes when they do have these, this has got a few ascending trend lines there. That's probably that was probably the point where the whole trend accelerated from as well. If I look just as Gary does the maths, this is something that
is looked at in the model books. If you haven't seen those videos, he's put a lot of research into it and looked at companies like NXL and SPR to see how they came out of a base and when they ran. And then at what point we would think it's run too far, only to find out it's going to run harder and harder and harder. And NXL was one that Gary did charts on in July and August. And as you can see here, it went for an extra flick even further. So
I'm going to share something, a personal secret that I don't share with most people here today. And it's around like, it's a bit of a, like a lot of GAN analysis sort of study. If you study sort of GAN, like the study of cycles there, most markets will end a certain way, Chris. They'll end, obviously you get a blow-off move and, aggressive moves off there, but there's a certain amount of timing which happens often. It's something I'm always quite wary of, because I've seen this happen over and over again, is that the last drive in a stock will often go up 90 calendar days, which is 3 months, which is a quarter year cycle. So it's sort of like, oftentimes stocks will build a base for 3 months and maybe half, or which is a quarter year. They can build a base for a half year. So they can actually go 1 quarter year, and then they go 1 quarter year into a higher level, then they accelerate up into 1 quarter year into a top, and that's how a lot of cycles go. So I'm always wary of the market going up really aggressively 90 days into a top, as in the overall market itself. So if I sort of like, just say it has a sort of consolidation there goes sideways there for 3 months, and then for a month or two, and then it accelerates and goes up vertically 90 days, that's like red light for me flashing. So if this has had a solid consolidation here, so you're talking about the low on this here was around that sort of 5th or 6th of August. So we sort of move, if this goes up into a blow-off top here, I'm okay. So I'm going to be nervous, if this goes up into something, around this, the 5th or 6th, 7th of November, into an aggressive high there, that's telling me that could be the top for the stock. Okay. So where's the sort of high here around this? I think this is a weekend around the 6th or 7th there. Might got an extra day or something there. But we will always allow ourselves a day or two grace with these cycles. But that would have been a little bit, the fact that we had gone that 1 quarter year cycle into that really aggressive, that's a timing just to be wary of. And look, I've traded plenty of these where they've made me big money, and I've traded plenty of these where had a tiny pullback and then kept going. So it doesn't work like everything else. Nothing else works all the time there. But it is something to be mindful of. If you see that sort of congestion, if you're along a stock and you've had a great run, and the last little pivot point was sort of roughly 3 months away, just something to be mindful of there. It's just often how they sort of come in there. That's just a cycle which happens in a lot of stocks. With commodities, they talk about, stocks are generally 90 days and commodities around 144. But just something to be mindful about. It just doesn't surprise me that top came in there, looking at the last swing low there. As soon as I see it, I can almost look on the chart now. I know it's kind of like I can see what 3 months is, because I looked for quite a lot.
Well, if you're as skeptical about this as I first was when Gary talked to me about it, go back and have a look at his Tuesday videos from 2021 and 2022. And you'll see how spot on his cycles can really be, because he traded up a storm then, and that was phenomenal. So I'll give Gary the credit to that. Watching it happen, unfold week after week after week, I was kind of glued. When's my next conversation with Gary? Because he's been banging on the lows, the highs, the pivot points. So I was super skeptical to start off with, but when you see it unfold, it's quite something. So, well, we thank you for sharing that with us, because I know it's...
So it just tells us with Muex now, that whole thing is tipped over now, Chris. So it's basically an overbalance of the trend as well. So that's the biggest pullback of this entire move. So that's an overbalance there. So, one or two things can happen here is that oftentimes it'll probably come off, might come off a little bit further here, but it might go back up and actually make a lower high, or it could even make a margin new high. But because it's overbalanced, it eventually should come back that sort of, 50%. just looking at the chart here, something like this level here around 370 makes sort of sense to me, because then that therefore qualifies for around the 50%. No, this is a pretty good company there, but it's not a fair multiple. It's had a cracking run, so we know these stocks can come back that 50% as well. So something like that might be a little bit. Oftentimes they'll come back to where the last drive started from. You'll see this probably half to 2/3 of the time here for a lot of these really aggressive names there. They'll come back to where the last acceleration point sort of started there. So just to be mindful that it could take a while.
You did look at that on Dry Shield and point that out as it was happening, or well and truly before it happened.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Dry Shield didn't really give you much. Once it overbalanced there, it didn't give you much time to, like a lot of stocks will sort of correct back and then they'll come back and make they'll give you a sort of second chance to sort of
selling in the highs.
Yeah, so I don't know whether satire, once it overbalanced there, it did grind up here, might have filled that gap, and then that was it. So they can do different things there. Let's get on to the
just before we go to the Launchpad, actually, you covered almost all of the requests. There was only one that didn't come in, which was DEL. That was sitting in 11th on the momentum leaders. DEL was one of the YouTube members who sent that in, said, would you like that one, please? And I can see why, because there's a bit of a staircase going on. There's a good spurt with volume. It pulls back with low volume. It is under that 30-cent, 50-cent threshold, which makes it harder to trade with large percentage moves.
Yeah.
What's your take on that chart?
Yeah, no, it's pretty constructive, isn't it, really? So you can see there, I mean, you've seen, it's too small for me personally, but you see that the green bars pull back on light volume. And we sort of see it building a few green bars here, maybe towards the end, but that's okay. But then it's pulled back here, no selling as well. Volume, so you can go into each bar there and look at the volume as well. Just look at the volume each day. You can see in here, there's like, it dries up to be 282, 280, 130, just no volume through there. And then you can sort of see what volume gets driven, higher there. And again, pull back on no volume again, still stays really tight in there. And then we start to see some better volume, more consistent there. Maybe not as high, but still pretty positive there. You get maybe one day of selling here, it doesn't show any more selling as well, and starts to sort of move up again. So still, nothing wrong with this stock at all here. We're just seeing here some of these stocks. People look at the chart here and go, it's in the top right, it's probably go as far as it can go. But we know these trends can sort of keep building here. I mean, what would be nice for this to probably come back here, use up a bit of time, maybe sit on top of that last high around 17 or even sort of 16 cents there. That would be good. Sort of sell on 16 to use up a bit of time, and then potentially go. It's nice to sort of see it running hot here, but sometimes the trends need sort of time to sort of consolidate those moves as well. But again, go back and study those strongest names, see what they do, because you know at some point they will go through a sort of consolidation. Consolidation may not be a bad thing. No, you're not. It's nice making money every day, but sometimes the stocks sort of go consolidate the move, or go sideways as well. So DUB was a bit of a mover there, but this is a classic one. I sort of, it's had a big pop here on the one day, but it's a very small stock, and it's trading against the headwind as well. So you just got so many losers in front of this one here. Look at that. It's just, that is gonna fight the tape. There's so many people who bought this at high prices who are just itching to get out. So that's why it's easy to trade names that have gone to new highs, because no one sold it above yet. Yes.
Everyone's behind you. You're all in there. You're all winners together. You're all on profit. So
yeah,
no one's not waiting to get their money back to pay for X. They're all cheering it on higher.
Yeah, I thought this one was interesting, Chris, because it had a bit of a V-shaped low, which is probably not awesome there. The fact that it's sort of come back quite deep, but it did sort of have an impulse of rally here, not a bad recovery, and then sort of come back and dried up here, and then it had another little rally here, and I thought, okay, at this stage, I think, okay, first correction, second correction, and maybe you're getting a little VCP in here. So it did break the little B wave there, has flashed back a little bit, stayed there, but it's probably a little loose. It's probably, you prefer to sort of see these be a little tighter, but looks not the worst looking chart there. The interesting thing is it's definitely seen some volume coming in on the updates here. So it does seem to be building here. Just prefer to see it a little bit looser there, a little bit tighter there. SCL, this was sort of interesting now. I mean, it's didn't give you too much time in there. You sort of obviously try to trading a downtrend there. I think if you actually go out and look at the weekly there, you can see this is sort of like it's just an overlapping sort of corrective sort of process there. So at this point there, it had rallied and sort of stayed under the previous swing low, which left it pretty vulnerable actually to go to a new low. But it did sort of tighten up here. And as soon as it did break above this level, it's hard there. You sort of don't happen too fast here really for most traders to catch this. But, once we did break through here, if you sort of saw this, obviously some news related here, once it goes through this level here, then that's the zone that you'd be I wouldn't have been touching this until it break above a little swing high here. So, 150 here, but with that, 150 to limit up to 152 potentially if it breaks those levels, and then but you still got to wait for those. I think you've got to wait for those sort of breaks there. 3DA, I thought this was just on the watch list for me, just because it's sort of had an impulsive move, gone sideways for a while, sort of corrective, just sort of building, holding in. The volume seems to be sort of heavier on the updates, so it's one that I think looks okay from the longer term horizon there. It's a little messy there, but we've had our ABC here. It's held at 50. It's held here again, starting to build here. So it's definitely one to keep an eye on. That looks sort of constructive here so far. Tyro's had a bit of a comeback here the last week here. So they went down to a new low. Bit of a false breakdown there. The government talking about making some changes there which will impact them, but I see the credit cards come out and say,
fighting back.
Changes will keep rid of the fraud. So that might kill that, but we'll see.
You've been wearing that on fraud activity, but if you want to wear it yourself, federal government, go for the fees.
We just got a government that's just introducing taxes left, right, and centre. Yeah, I can't be the only one who's seeing the cost of everything go up, and just frighteningly, fast. I mean, CTB insurance, there's just the fees are just getting, I see even the medical now talking about taking away some of the, some of the bot billing they're charging people. It's like, it's getting tougher out there for everyone. So, I think the AMA put forward and said we want to be able to charge more fees, get more bot billing rebates for the longer consultations, and that's to keep people out of hospitals. And there's all this pushing and pulling at the government for the fees. Maybe they're after the banks to fill the void. Anyway, that's getting political. Yeah, like as I said, I think I saw some of the imaging comments I was saying, obviously you have to start charging them. People will probably less do them, and then if you're not screening, then you got bigger problems later on down the track there, more money coming out later. So it's that's exactly what the GPs were saying. They say, look, we'll do longer consultations. It'll keep people out of hospitals, hopefully less beds, but you need to pay us more. So, I wouldn't want to be balancing that federal budget. That's a jump deal. So the Tyro goes on the watch list just because it has made a recovery here. All the sector's pretty hot. I mean, we've seen Zip and Square and all those other stocks do pretty well. So maybe it can have some sort of consolidation there. But has been a bit of a lag out there. That's the only thing. But maybe it'll pull back, tighten up, give us opportunity. James Hardy's been one of those stocks that's benefited from Trump there. So I know this is sort of the, in that sort of top 5 Trump trade, I guess, for our market they're talking about. Obviously being a beneficiary there in the States as well. James Hardy, building construction. So it's probably one to sort of keep an eye on. They probably want to sort of see some sort of consolidation there. MP1's had a bit of a recovery as well. This is has been a stock which has been a pretty nasty downtrend there. So it had a fairly large correction there. So, you don't try and buy these things because they could just, this probably looked like value all the way down here, but it's gone quite deep here now. So, again, that's one about leading, had a fairly decent move here, 15 down to 70. So there's your 50% decline there. So, people fall over these stocks here, but they can have pretty large declines here. Yeah, a lot of people are talking about the, super cycling commodities and stuff there, but we have seen some pretty big moves. I think you're just seeing moves that are pretty similar to the 40s and 70s, Chris, there, because those precious metals and energy and commodities had some pretty big moves in the 70s and 40s when inflation was high, but there was some pretty large corrections as well. And we're seeing, we saw uranium lit up the launch pad there, quite a while ago. They had a massive move, but then once it's done here, they've all had corrections around 50%. All those uranium stocks there. That's the thing about gold here now. Now you're seeing all these gold stocks. They've had some phenomenal runs here. Now they're all starting to correct there. Just be careful jumping into these things too quickly, because when these leading names, leading themes light up, have these big moves, what follows is often a big correction here. So people are going to be trying to jump in by, because they've fall for the trap that is super cycle is, but might be a super cycle, but these things can have big corrections as well. So
volatile super cycles.
Yeah. I mean, they're just going to have some big moves there. I mean, what was the RSG? That's already halved already. I know that's got
a few other issues.
Yeah, a few issues going on there, but there's plenty of them actually had some pretty big corrections already. So, don't be surprised if the pullback a bit larger than everyone thinks. LAU, I thought this is interesting there. Just look at the larger sort of pattern there. This is a pretty impulsive move here. It had a bit of a corrective decline here, so it's used up a bit of time. It's still sort of sitting in the top half of our weekly sort of setup. Seeing a bit of volume here. Just one to sort of watch there. It's still got lower high. They still haven't broken swing high yet, so we can't jump in here yet. But let's see a bit of volume here. So okay, it's interesting. Did sort of bounce off the lows here. But yeah, you want to sort of see this. This is one that on the structure of the weekly, it's a corrective decline. So you can come out of those and then go again. This is one just to sort of keep an eye there. I mean, I definitely put this on a longer term list there to watch. Because that's the sort of stock that starts trending again. It could go into, it might be a slower trend, but it could sort of go, could run for a while here. MYX is sort of interesting there. It's had an impulsive rally, but it's come back again. It's a little choppy, this stock here. I did try to trade this little VCP in here, which didn't follow through. Just grounded out. Had a second go, couldn't get going here, and sort of stopped out here. They often will come back and flash through here. So, but still pretty loose here. So look, I'd probably want to sort of see this thing tighten up a bit here first. Kind of reminds me. I mean, I think Tyro looked pretty similar to that breakdown. I think 4DX, which was another one that was sort of just looked quite good in here. The whole thing had tightened up. Thought might be a VCP in here, but again, look at that. Just lower high. So it's just real. It's just sort of reeled off here. So I thought it might have held up in here and got going there, because that's a pretty impulsive move. But yeah, it's stayed with it. Look, you might change at some point there, but you've got to wait. For those sort of those BOI breaks there. Where else we got there? Old name WC8. Look, it's broken a swing high, so that's possible change in character. But again, sort of we look at the weekly on this. Really that last rally is just sat underneath the previous swing low, so that still leaves it in a bullish position. And look at the weekly. We haven't talked about. Yeah, so we don't want to see volume come in on the pullback. So we seeing the heavy volume in this. That's warning me against that one. So you want to see them come back on with lighter volume then. We've sort of shown you a couple of good examples of stocks cooling off there for 3 or 4 days, no volume. That they're the ones that sort of tend to sort of keep going there. HLO was on the sector there. Notice a few travel stocks there. Chris actually jumped in here. So Flight Centre's had a nice bounce. Obviously Qantas is running pretty hot. Corporate travel, sort of one that had my report there, so that's now breaking out as well. So good signs there for those travel stocks there overall. So now you just got to sort of wait for some sort of consolidation, maybe high low there, but pretty solid there. C and B. Bit of a VCP tightening up here, but it is sort of a downward on the bottom of the chart here, so not the best. You prefer to sort of see that ascending type of VCP where seeing the high lows sort of and trying to squeeze up through the top there. Bit going on there. I think apart from those ones there, Chris, I saw obviously GYG on there as well. It's still a bit of a sideways correction there, so this is definitely worth monitoring there. A couple others have been in our list recently that I'm sort of watching. There's that ARR still going sideways, hasn't done too much yet. OYL is another one from the list as well, going sideways, hasn't resolved itself here yet, but holding up pretty well. That IAA, which was in the list a while back, I was going to say hasn't done too much.
That's a tight move, isn't it? That's
So we're just broken down here. So it's funny actually. I was just thinking. I'm thinking of this one here. It's gone, had a big move. It's pulled back. It's tightened up here. It almost needs like a little shakeout. And normally, if you go back and look at, I think I looked at FNG. I was literally just looking at this before we came on here. Actually, so I'm thinking, this is what. This needs a little shakeout from there. You see that, they've gone sideways there tight. Just that had a few little shakeouts in here. So that I-88 just needs to, shake a few people out of here, this one. So definitely one I'm watching. Bit long there. But yeah, just because that's sort of classically sort of how they sort of set up there, have a big move, pull back, nice and tight, maybe once or twice little shakeout is. Probably nothing going on here for a bit, but yeah, definitely a stock to watch there. I think it's interesting there. I noticed Judo has been stayed pretty tight. I mean, this is, we're talking about stock that's run up pretty hot here, and then all that 1, 2, 3, 4. I was looking at this yesterday. I think, geez, there's just no selling in here still. Even though the stock's where it is, So I did think about bikes. I mean, so I didn't actually. Just something I didn't like in there, so I left it alone. But that stayed tight there.
It's an example of consistently hitting 52-week highs, isn't it?
Yeah,
a lot of days in there, 52-week.
Yeah, so strong as well. Superloop as well, and that's just it's just consistently climbed here. I mean, even this as well. If you look at Superloop here, look at the pullback in there. No selling. Still no selling here. I mean, obviously, I think ABV's been sniffing around with Superloop as well, so that's the potential there. LVL was one of the other leaders. That's a little VCP in there. That's slightly better than the other one. Just because it's sort of sitting in the high end there. One to sort of keep an eye on. What else was there? OBM, which has been on our list there for a while. That's just sort of broken below the 50 today, Chris. So, yeah, just got to be careful of that. There's some pretty big selling there too. There was one line there, which I looked at the shareholding. There can only be one of the top 2 shareholders, which are both fund managers. So one of the fundies actually
rotating
is selling some out today. So, but yeah, so it's had a fair move, this one. So, yeah, I mean, sometimes they come back to the 50 and they're bouncing there. So, look, still might want to watch this one here. That's the old high there, so I'd probably be watching that level as well, but probably don't like to see them break below the 50 too much there. I think the LTP is still, been up and down here. I do like this one here, but it's a little loose. I'm hoping for the whole thing to tighten up here, but we'll see there. That's about it, but I think everything else is...
You only had one extra request that skipped the Launchpad list, which is PAR.
Which one's that? PAR?
Yeah, Papa Alpha Romeo.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a good reason I'll skip this one.
What's the reason? Because whoever's put it in there probably wants to know why.
They've raised equity quite a bit of times. Yeah, it's sort of anytime it rallies, it's got, again, I like this stock previously. It's a repurposed drug there, but it's again, like the biotechs there, if commerciality is too far away, they're just draining funds. Look at the, it's got a ton of losers behind it as well. So anytime it rallies here, it's going to face, you can see every time it's rallied here, it's just been sold off aggressively. Look at that, big volume now, rallies, big volume, so any time we've seen a bit of a rally here, we've just seen aggressive selling into it. So yeah, that's an avoid for me personally. I saw there was a couple others there. AHX staying nice and tight here, a little bit loose, but now tightening up. That looks okay. I think the XB's come back and that's had the sort of correction here now, been a leader in the past as well. Pretty light volume in there. That's not too much selling there, but wants to hold this line here. Really, I don't think you want to see it go too much lower than this here. So one to keep an eye on. And the old WA1, which was on the leaderboard, Chris, has had a reasonable correction here now, but whole thing's still sort of tightening up here. Hasn't broken a swing high here, but yeah, definitely watching this one here, just because we have seen in the past those old leaders can come back again, but so far we've just got lower high here. So on the radar, it had a good update there, but it didn't really move the needle on the stock. So just a bit of a watch there, but yeah, still plenty happening. Yeah.
There's a lot happening. There are a lot of companies to cover in there, and you've definitely highlighted the pros and the cons. And what we'll look is we'll share at the end a video that we put out this week, because we've received a lot of questions, both from members and people who are just subscribers, not yet members. How do we use the 30-30 list? What does it look like? And then specifically, how do we use each of the metrics in it, and how do they help us narrow down our companies? So we'll put a link on the screen at the very end there, and we'll end by saying thank you very much, Gary Glover.
Thanks, Chris.